all the magic of my life comes from that phone call, which was the hardest phone call I've ever had to make. But it changed the course of my life, like profoundly. Like I don't think I would have my Virgin Galactic ticket to space.
Hello, everyone. This is the Space Cafe podcast, and I'm Marcus. You know what's truly funny about space exploration? We spend countless hours perfecting our rockets, designing state-of-the-art habitats, and mapping out supply chains to the moon and Mars and beyond. But there is this elephant in the room we rarely talk about. Who exactly are we sending up there? And I don't mean their job titles or technical skills. I'm talking about who they are as humans. Think about it. When we finally set up those first permanent settlements beyond Earth, we're not just exploring technology and scientific expertise. We're potentially exploring every bit of human nature, the good, the bad, and everything in between. It's like packaging for the longest trip ever, but instead of forgetting your toothbrush, you might accidentally pack along centuries of human conflict and bias. Today's guest has been wrestling with exactly this question. Loretta Hidalgo Whitesides, a veteran in the field of human spaceflight, has dedicated her career to ensuring that space exploration is not just about technological achievements, but about creating a better future for humanity. With a degree in biology from Stanford and a master's in space studies from the International Space University, Loretta has worked with NASA on astrobiology research and helped lay the foundation for human space travel as an early employee at Virgin Galactic. She's co-founder of Yuri's Night, the global space party, and a thought leader who focuses on the human experience in space, offering workshops on space leadership and the psychology of space travel. And her approach isn't just technical, it's deeply human. Can we send the best of humanity into space while leaving behind our worst tendencies? Is a clean slate even possible? These questions are becoming less theoretical as we edge closer and closer to permanent space settlements. And Loretta has made it her mission to find the Jedi among us, to lead us into this new era. So strap in for a conversation that's less about the vehicles, the starships that will take us into space, and more about the humans who will be sitting in them. Welcome, Loretta, to the Space Cafe podcast.
Loretta, there's been a lot of talk about colonizing Mars as early as 2028. Maybe, I don't know if this is true or if there's something to it. Do you have any major intel in regard to our next big goal as humans?
Hilarious. No, I haven't been following humans to Mars in a long time. I was very into humans to Mars when I was in college. Worked on this Stanford International Mars mission. Was all gung-ho to go to Mars myself. And haven't been as, was part of the Mars Underground and went to the Case for Mars conferences in Boulder, Colorado, before the Mars Society was even created. That was the early days. It was really fun.
Would you still go?
Haven't been. I'm not as drawn to Mars these days. I blame James Cameron myself. I watched the movie Titanic in the 90s after I graduated college, and it was just like 3 hours of white knuckle terror, like cold water and death. And I was like, I think there's a line in the movie where she says, I want to die an old woman in my bed. And I thought, God, I don't know if this journey to Mars could be pretty harrowing. Like, I think I want to die an old woman in my bed. So I decided then I switched my career goals to being on the crew that goes to Mars, to being somebody that the crew calls before they launch for their mission to Mars for like moral support. And I'm like, okay, I'm there for you. I got this.
So speaking of a crew, Who should go? Who should go to Mars? Who should represent humanity on Mars? Who would, if you had the reins over that decision, who would you send?
Been thinking about this for years. So I would send the most Jedi people that I could that can get along, because that's going to be one of your biggest challenges.
How would you know?
Well, that's one of my gifts, as I have a really good ability to read people and imagine. I'm a matchmaker also, so I'd be like, "Oh, Marcus, you know who you would just love? I got to introduce you, to Samson. You two would just click." So I don't. It's everyone has their superpower. Some people it's music, some people it's spreadsheets. Some people it's whatever, like engineering. That's just something I can do, and I can't even explain how. It's just I don't know, just like it feels like it came in the free software package.
Fantastic. So how many? What would the first crew? So you said the best ones you would select. Is it 10 people? Is it 5, 15?
In the 90s, we were always like, oh, it should be around 6 people. That's the minimum crew makeup for the job. So that was the bias we had. Less mouths to feed, less oxygen, less space in the small vehicle. Because this is the 90s. We didn't have starships just blowing around. And then, of course, there's the other bias I have from coming of age as a Martian in the 90s, which was reading Kim Stanley Robinson. And of course, he sends 100 people. I think that's a little much. It's pretty hard to get 100 people to get along.
Absolutely.
But I think 6. We could find a crew of 6 that could get along.
The question I'm trying to get at is the right choice, the right people, because this is one of you mentioned it, superpowers, but also one of your passions to help us venture out there into the unknown, to rebuild or settle down on different celestial bodies, but not the humans we used to know on Earth only. Maybe a better version of those humans. So could you speak to that a little?
Yeah, I mean, I like to joke that we could go to Mars, but if we're just the same people that we are here, the same jerks that we are on Earth, it'll be like different planet, same humans, and it won't go very well. It won't be very interesting. Oh, it might be very interesting, but it won't be very pleasant and peaceful. We'll have the same problem. We'll end up with the same problems we have here, and I'm interested in us going beyond that. So yeah, so we have to bring our best selves, our best version of ourselves, the people who've healed the most, the people who've healed their intergenerational trauma the most, the people who cannot take things personally, people who can deal with challenges and disasters. And I think, wow, I just had a thought. I would say the number one skill set you would need to go to Mars is to be able to make amends, to repair relationships. So it's inevitable, even with your best friend on a road trip, that you're going to have a disagreement. Like, why did you say that? Or I wanted to go to this other restaurant and you made us go here. And how do you repair? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have spoken to you that way in the car back there. I got upset and I didn't treat you the way I want to treat you. And I apologize for that. So we need people who can get relationships back on track when they go off track. They're going to go off track. That's just entropy. And as a modern society, we don't have a lot of tools, a lot of practice for how to get relationships back on track. That's why people get divorced. That's why people change jobs, because when things go off track, we don't have the skill sets to repair them. And I think if we're going to be living in confined environments, if we're going to be living in places where any one of your 10,000 person O'Neillian space city can kill everyone in an instant, we're so vulnerable in space. We have to be able to trust each other and work out our differences and find ways to peacefully settle conflict.
It sounds like a huge task to find those people.
Well, not to find those people, to become those people, to train to train those people.
So you think you could train like. So what you would do is you would pick the astronaut selection that NASA or Elon or whoever is doing it is making, and then train them. How would that work?
Oh, fair question. No, I would bias the selection. I mean, that's what NASA does. NASA biases the selection to the people who they think in their interview process are most likely to be able to handle 6 months on the International Space Station. They already do that. They're interviewing Marcus, and they're like, he looks a little reactive. His ego is a little too big. Like, I think he's not going to be able to live in the space station for 6 months with other cultures. Like, they're going to get under his skin, and he's going to get pissed off. Yeah. We want somebody who's more chill. So you have to select and start for the best, like people who have already trained for that or already are just that way innately. Like my husband just is that way. I am not. I have to train for it. So yeah, you want to select for it, and then on top of the selection, train.
Let's talk about the right viewpoint for humanity, who we are, and what you envision humanity to be, and that has to do with the overview effect. So, how do we maybe we need to go into space to first take a picture of ourselves as to who we are and who we want to be, who we could be, and then distill this picture, this image of humans into a selection to then seed other planets. Is this the way to go? Maybe you can explain it a lot easier and more efficiently than I just did.
No, it's great. I think the overview effect is Frank White, the author of the overview effect, is an extraordinary human being, and the book is fantastic. And I think that it's a really powerful concept to be able to look at the Earth and shift it. I mean, at a simple level, you could say it's like transcend ego. Like there's this momentary like relaxing of ego where you just sort of fall in love with Earth and everything on it, everyone on it, and just want to just appreciate it and just protect it. And I personally think, I've talked to Frank, I'm like, Frank, I think really a lot of the overview effect is just that we, in the space industry, we have all these hard charging, like me, like type A, like achiever addicts. And we've just been going so hard our whole careers that for some of these astronauts, being in the cupola window might be the first time they've actually slowed down enough to be bowled over and move like that, because they didn't have time for it before. Like, I've got to get my PhD, I got to get my pilot's license. I'm busy. But once you've made it and you're on the space station, you're like, you know what? I think I've earned 5 minutes of basking in the Earth glow. And so I think it's then that they can be moved. And there's Chris Huey Spence is a Virgin Galactic engineer, incredible human being, wonderful Jedi. And he gets to fly. He was selected to be one of the company employees to fly on one of the early test flights, which I'm so excited for him, because that was just such an amazing opportunity. And he was on Instagram the other day, and he said, I think you don't necessarily need to go to space to experience the overview effect, which I thought was really beautiful. Because for me, it really is like any time that you're let ego down, you could experience it at the Grand Canyon, you could experience it the birth of your child, you can experience it, on the top of a mountain, or just around a campfire with friends. Like any time where you're slow down and you drop your ego and you can be just bowled over by the wonder and majesty of existence, and be humbled by that. That's powerful. So I think going, like you were saying, going to Earth, going to space and taking a snapshot of Earth is sort of a shortcut. And there's other ways to do it, to have that experience, even without having to, expend the energy required to take my mass to space. Although I do still hope to go to space, but you don't have to have that experience.
But It's in fact a very simple observation that we're all making when we're traveling and we are thinking of our beloved ones back at home, and suddenly the mundane everyday chores become different and everything becomes different once you're separated from a person you love or a person that is important to you. So maybe this is the same reaction. Now and then we need a pause, we need a break. And through this break, we can experience things differently. I think this is the overview effect on a personal level.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Maybe. That's really beautiful.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. Speaking of what you just mentioned, you mentioned Virgin Galactic. With Virgin Galactic, you are trying to develop something along those lines. We're trying to help democratize your ideas. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really exciting opportunity to Virgin Galactic to, and Blue Origin and others, like, even SpaceX right now. Like, we're just expanding the community of people who have the opportunity to go into space, even to people who can't buy the ticket themselves. I mean, so many have already flown with a ticket or a crypto sweepstakes or Space for Humanity, like gifting the flights to people that they think would be, the first woman from Mexico or the first woman from Egypt, like these people who could be real trailblazers for their country.
So please do correct me, but is the new right stuff idea that you developed, is this also connected to Virgin Galactic in your work?
It's connected in that when I wrote the book, it was to go with my book here, the Jedi training course.
Show it again. Yeah, it's got a beautiful cover. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's sort of a workbook. It's got places to write in it, and exercises to do, and it's a journey, and it was we had an accident at Virgin Galactic in 2014, and it was a really hard day. It was a painful day. And it reminded me of when, the Challenger accident with the shuttle happened when I was a kid in school. And then the Columbia accident as well. After I'd already worked at NASA, and I always felt, like there was a very human side of failure. It isn't just engineering. It isn't just math. It wasn't like somebody made a math error and these things happened. It was a lot about human interactions and no, I don't need help. And where we want to do it our way, or we've always done it this way, or that's not a problem. Like there are these communication breakdowns. There are these interpersonal breakdowns that led to really tragic space accidents. And I've felt that, my whole life. And so when it happened that close to home, I was like, okay, we can't let this happen again. And I said, I'm going to do whatever I can. Use the gifts I've been given, because I've been very fortunate, been trained by some extraordinary people. And I was like, okay, I need to share what I know. And so I started Jedi training at Virgin Galactic and training our engineers and our space wrenches, the people who are actually working on the spaceship every day and touching it and putting it together, and make sure that, stuff happens. Your boss says something, you don't get invited to a meeting, someone cuts you off on the way to work in the car, your roommate says something, your mom sends you a text message. Like all those things are impacting you, and it's impacting your ability to treat your colleagues well, to do the right thing in the spreadsheet, to not let something bother you and something happens. Anyway, so it's affecting the spaceship. And I said, no, this can't be. So I wanted to train our staff as much as I could to let things go, to do the self-care, to heal relationships that were stressing them out outside the office, because that stuff, your whole life matters. If you have to, your whole life is impacting who you're being when you're working on the spaceship. So I had to help people work through differences in their marriages and with their parents, with their kids, with their neighbors, so that they could bring their best game. to work. So that's what we did.
So that's your superpower that you just have, that you were born with, right? Because from your college degree, this is not the education
No.
that you brought into the game.
No, people are like, oh, so you have a psychology background. I'm like, I do not have a psychology background. When I was in college, psychology did not teach these skills. And I wasn't born with it either. I mean, I have some innate matchmaking skills and some innate like people reading skills, but Jedi training skills I was not born with. That would be cool. And I wasn't even born with like a level head. Like I'm very prone to anger. But that was perfect. It's sort of like an alcoholic. Like it's sometimes all the alcoholics I've ever met are grateful for being alcoholics, because then they had to go train to like function in life, and all that training helped them be people they can be proud of. And so they're like, oh, I'm grateful that my life fell apart with alcohol because it worked. And so I think of us as like achievement addicts. The same way people have a problem with alcohol, we have a problem with like being the achievement ego. Mine is called being impressive. I want to be impressive. I want you to be like, wow, you did that, Loretta? Wow, you're so impressive. Anyway, so yeah, no, I got trained in a lot of those by wonderful humans and coaches, and it helped me survive graduate school. And so I'm trying to now pass on what I learned.
It's great. Fantastic. I'm really glad about that conversation, because this is something that I think touches everyone on this planet, because we all have our issues we're carrying along with. I want to be appreciated for the things I do, and this, of course, dates back to maybe how I was brought up and whatever. But you will help people like me to get over this. So I'm just wondering, that book you just showed us, the New Right Stuff. Is this a manual, or how does it work?
Yeah, it's a workbook. It's actually the textbook for the class I do. So,
okay.
I used to teach it in-house at Virgin Galactic for our staff, and then during COVID, I had to figure out how to do it over Zoom, and because we do a lot of work with buddies and things, and once I figured out how to do breakout rooms and everything, we took it online, and so now we call it. We couldn't call it Jedi training anymore because copyright issues with Disney. So once we took it online, we changed the name to SpaceKind training. That's like a play on, humankind and SpaceKind, and a reminder to be both space people and kind. And so we do our SpaceKind training, and we've been running that since May 2020. With Dr. Cyan Proctor was in our first cohort.
Fantastic. Really?
She got selected to do her, after her training, she got selected to do her orbital flight. And so she was our first SpaceKinder in space.
That's if that's okay for you, let's go down that rabbit hole and give us a little bit of an insight. Let's go into your book, into your manual, into your workbook, and why don't you walk us through some of your secrets and how that works?
Sure. So it's a hero's journey. So I'm a Star Wars kid. I'm a Jedi, so obviously we're going to use Star Wars. And Star Wars, like many of the classic tales, they follows the hero's journey. So the hero, you're called to adventure, and then the meeting of the mentor, like Yoda. And then there's the trials, like training in Dagobah, going into the cave. So we go into the cave. In chapter 3, we face our dark side. That's one of the things you get to do on your journey is sort of tell the truth to yourself about the stuff you've been avoiding. Shame, where you have shame and embarrassment, and just, I don't want to talk about that. Okay, well, you get to it. You get to it at some point in your life, or you die with it. You die with that shame and sadness and regret. And so we're like, no, like open the doors, let in the sunshine, like free yourself from the shame and the regret. And then you're lighter. I share about how, there's a NASA astronaut, Leland Melvin. He's an extraordinary human being. He used to play African-American, used to play in the NFL, the American Football League. And he's the only person to have played in the NFL and then been selected to be a NASA astronaut. So he's just extraordinary. Got a PhD in chemical engineering, I think. And he's got these two great dogs that are in his official NASA astronaut photo, where the dogs are like licking his face. And he's just like the warmest, most loving, extraordinary human being. And he wrote his autobiography. And in it, he shares about how he was sexually assaulted by the neighborhood boys when he was a kid. And he said, I had to wait until my father passed to share this story because I was worried that my dad would, go try to seek revenge or something. But it was so courageous and so brave of him to share that, something that traditionally, and at least in the United States, would you'd have so much shame and you wouldn't want to share. And you just want to take that secret to your grave. But there's something like when you can just say your piece on stage and just share it with the world and say like, this happened and I'm letting it go and I've forgiven those people and I've moved on and I'm a successful, extraordinary human being and I'm letting that go. So I think that's success, is when you can be fully who you are with nothing held back. And I think that's why you see so many successful people and wealthy people who are miserable, who are addicted, or who are suicidal, because like being wealthy and being famous and being powerful won't heal those wounds. If you still hate who you are, you're still carrying all that pain. All the money and all the power and all the success, all the Academy Awards and accolades won't make you feel any better. So I'm really interested. Like, yes, I want you to go to space. Yes, I want you to go to Mars. And make sure you're doing this healing first so that when you get there, you are fully free.
How long does that process take?
Well, years. I mean, a decade, I would say. I mean, depending how much. I mean, we heal, we try to, like, for example, this week is week 5. It's an 8-week journey, hero's journey. And in week 5, the hero faces death. So this week we wrote our obituaries, and our challenge this week is to have a courageous conversation with someone in our life. So someone you need to talk to, someone you've been putting off talking to. And now, and nobody gives you a deadline for these conversations. There's no in your normal life, but we're like in the class, we're like, nope, Marcus, you got to call him. You got to call him this week, and we'll support you and give you coaching. And I know it's scary, or I know you're afraid he's going to say this, but okay, like come from this place and be, peaceful in yourself, and give you the courage to like do something you've been putting off for a long time.
Wow.
So I've done that many times, like 15 courageous conversations. It's funny how you never run out of people you need to talk to. So I say, I lead this a couple times a year. So it's like, anyway, there's always more to heal. There's always more to forgive. There's always more to love about yourself. Like I'm still working on feeling worthy of love. Like, even though I've been doing this kind of work for 20 years, like I'm still, there's still more layers of the onion to peel back, or, but every time you do it, you get more freed up, more in your own power, more loving, more joyful, more grateful. So it's a worthwhile journey.
How do people usually react throughout this chapter, like the one you just described? I mean, like, I could imagine they're kind of hesitant to venture into that dark cave, into that pain cave. But then once through, I don't know what the percentage of participants is that makes it through that process and comes back out alive again. How do they react?
Amazingly. Like they're like, I didn't know I needed this. Like I signed up because, I wanted to be a better leader at work, but I didn't realize like how much this relationship with my brother was weighing on me, was holding me back. And now I've had just the most beautiful stories. Like the final challenge of the 8 weeks is to upgrade your relationship with your parents. Because that's your first relationship. And it's, I didn't want to. Like when someone first told me that when I was 27, they're like, okay, go talk to your dad. I'm like, hell no. Do you know my dad? He's an idiot. No way. I have no interest. What's the point? I don't want him in my life. I don't need him in my life. I don't care. I'm not interested. And they're like, go talk to your dad. And, eventually I started to see, okay, maybe there's some value. Anyway, but I did it. I had to do a lot of work before I was ready to do that. I had to forgive him and see my role in the breakdown, because we're not ever 100% blame, not anyway. But out of that, got my whole life, got the ability to have my romantic relationships work, got the ability to have kids, to have my kids have an awesome grandfather. Like just so much magic. All the magic of my life comes from that phone call, which was the hardest phone call I've ever had to make. But it changed the course of my life, like profoundly. Like I don't think I would have my Virgin Galactic ticket to space if I hadn't healed my relationship with my dad. And at 27, that was not, I didn't see those things as connected at all. But it turns out, looking back in time, they were incredibly connected. And I've had students who, she took on calling her dad and saying the things that had been putting off saying and everything that was on her heart and forgiveness and reconciliation and coming back together and connection. And then her dad got diagnosed with cancer and died unexpectedly, it's 6 months later. And she said, if I hadn't had that assignment, we would have stayed sort of estranged while he was dying. But because we had already healed our relationship, I was able to be with him and support him and have everything healed when he died. Like just, how do you... priceless. Like you can't put a price on the difference that it makes in somebody's life to have their dad die in peace. I mean, it's amazing.
Fantastic. Amazing. So all in all, your role in all of this is to be a cleansing tool for humanity or whoever is taking part in your course to become their better or best selves. And this process, this stripping away of those leftovers, and the dark sides, that will then it's like washing gold. Like you're digging for those gold nuggets, and you're right.
Yeah.
And this is a tedious process because you're standing in a raging river now and then, maybe, and there's a lot of dirt and mud involved. But at the end, you're digging for those gold nuggets, and once you have them, there's something you can do with them, and maybe this is also something that you're trying. If I understand you right, you're trying to elevate us into that gold nugget process that will never end, of course. So there will never be that moment where you say, okay, you're finished, you're the perfect human, but you're a better human now than before. And now you're ready. Now you may be ready to represent us on that space mission. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That's a beautiful metaphor too. I love rivers, so that one appeals. And it affects our space stuff. I mean, I've had so many participants report that they have a breakdown at work with a colleague. And if you're working on a space mission, if you have a conflict, it's going to affect the mission. And I've had people even say they have a conflict with somebody who works in mission control. Like, you don't want to have a breakdown with somebody who works in mission control. And so it's been very heartening to have people come back at the end of the hero's journey and say, you know what? I don't have a problem with that person anymore. We're working together now. Went from 0% relationship to 80% relationship. Or now I can work with mission control. And it's like, okay, good. Let everyone be able to work with mission control. That would be what a great leveling up of our missions that would be.
And so this course is happening together with Virgin, or is this your personal thing?
Now it's outside of Virgin. So we were in-house for 5 years, and now it's opened up. So we've got people from Blue Origin and SpaceX and NASA and Paragon and all Planet and all kinds of different space companies.
Okay, so you're doing this for the companies, for the agencies. So you wouldn't do it for a random stranger who would say, "Hey, no. Loretta, help me become my better self."
It's open up to it's on in LinkedIn. So anyone in the space industry is welcome. And we even have people from outside the space industry who join us, from referrals or word of mouth. They're like, well, I'm not a space person, but I realized that this is probably important for me to do. Or I know a space person.
Yeah. Is this already something on the curriculum of the companies and the agencies that's like an official thing to do? Or is this a nice to have experiment for them?
No, there's no company. You could be the first. There's no company or agency that has this as their official curriculum. And to be honest, I'm not even like trying to do that. I find that the work is most powerful when an individual chooses it and seeks it out and wants it for themselves. Yeah. I find it never works as well when your mom or your boss or your mentor, they tell you, I need you to do Loretta's SpaceKind training by October for you to be eligible for a promotion. They're like, okay. And it's like,
yeah, I want to see good grades.
Yeah. Nope. Yeah. They have to be like, oh my gosh, like I can't.
It's a mission.
I'm so frustrated. I'm so burnt out. I'm so irritated by my colleagues. Like I thought this would be different, and it's not. And I'm at a turning point, and I know this job isn't right. And I know I need to be somewhere else. Like when they have the internal motivation, like I need something. I need something to help me navigate where I'm supposed to be headed next. I'm like, okay, great. You should come. You're ready.
All this brings me also now to something that you were also focusing on, that is the mission, to develop your own mission in life. Why do you think that is important?
I think because without an intention, we're so much more at the mercy of like the chaos of life. So like in SpaceKind level 2, you start every day reading your life vision. And it's to ground you and to remind you of what you say is most important to you. Like, I want to be calm today. I want to be grateful today. I want to be present today. I want to be generous today. I want to be like non-reactive. I want to support the people around me. I want to be joyful. I want to dance. I want to laugh. I want to forward a future for the universe that works for all beings. And so you like center your energy and your attention around that. So then when somebody cuts you off on the freeway on the way to work, you're like, well, I want life to work for all beings, including that being that just cut me off. So you've just presenced it. You set the intention. So it's like helping shape your reactions intentionally and not just letting like your ego run the show, which is like, why you, who do you think you are driving like that? Exactly. And then like, and then I'm upset for 20 minutes while those chemicals are going through my body. So like putting you in the driver's seat of your life. And well, even that, okay. There's also a piece for me about, listening for what the universe wants me to do. Like maybe my ego doesn't know what's best. Maybe I also have to listen like humbly to like how I can best be of service. Like maybe I should help the guidance navigation control team today because they're behind on their projects. And like maybe that won't help me get my promotion or get a seat on the mission. But that's what I can see is needed in my environment today.
It's very interesting because you mentioned, or you used a lot of adjectives when I asked you about a mission. So you wouldn't say a mission could be a certain job, for example. So I would even go as far as to say becoming or wanting to become an astronaut is not a mission in one's life because it's just a job. You need to work a lot harder. Why do you want to become an astronaut? I want to become an astronaut in order to, I don't know, educate humans about the beauty of space or whatnot. So am I understanding you right? That maybe even becoming an astronaut or wanting to become an astronaut is not the mission you're talking about?
Exactly. And that's actually one of the pitfalls that's very common in our industry. Like, I want to get a job at X company, or I want to get a job, I want to be an astronaut. And there's this myth that if you do that, if you check that box, then, everything will be fine. And, for those of us who've lived through stuff, we know that you can get that job and there's still a lot more to do. You're not done. You're not like, okay, I made it. And even an astronaut. I mean, one of the things I put in the book is I have an astronaut friend who committed suicide after retiring from NASA. And just as a reminder, just to break apart that myth, the same as famous people committing suicide, that just because you've made it, just because you've achieved the ultimate thing, you went to space with NASA even, doesn't mean all your problems are solved. Or all life's going to work out. There's more to doing that. There's more than being an astronaut. So yeah, why do you want to be an astronaut? What are you, what still like, because then once you become an astronaut, then when somebody cuts you off from, on the street, how are you going to remind yourself? Yeah. So you need a bigger context for your life of what you're here to do. Like serve, educate, inspire, bring together, unify, what is your life about?
Before we move on to a completely different topic, is there one more Jedi move or superpower you could share? I really like that one with make the uncomfortable phone call. I like that one. Is there another one you could share?
Yeah, there's a lot. The week before we did an integrity sprint. So like Luke training in Dagobah, like the way we trained for the ordeal is we did an integrity sprint. Like you look for the things you're most avoiding in your life that are most hanging over you, the taxes, the student loan, the thing in the garage, like the thing, anyway, the car, the health, the medical thing you haven't done, and just like setting aside, 2 hours on one day to just like get all the appointments made and take the thing in and that you've been putting off. And so like getting all that to not bother you. And then the other one we do is Jedi listening. And we do a whole exercise in the course, in the Zoom call, to have you experience what it is to Jedi listen. And so we train people in like giving someone their full attention, eye contact, and like that it's the energy of you as a listener that brings out the best in the speaker. And then if you get distracted and you're like, oh, I forgot, I was supposed to call that other person, like the speaker could lose their place because like you matter that much to them. And so we train people in like, if you're at a talk, if you're going to IEC next week, sit in the front of the room, put your phone down, don't live tweet, like tweet it after the talk, but during the talk, just fully listen to the person and give them, smile, give them eye contact, like laugh at their jokes, like clap when they do something cool, and they're going to give like an even better talk because of who you're being in the audience.
This is, that's so true. I just made an interesting observation. I had to force myself during my first rocket launch I've ever witnessed so far at Kennedy Space Center, the Hera mission. And when I saw that Falcon 9 rocket, I forced myself not to videotape it on my smartphone because then I would also be distracted and not even appreciate what's going on in real time. So this is something I needed to force myself into doing because we're so used to catching those moments, and then they're gone because there was thick clouds, and so I had like 15 seconds or so of visible spacecraft. And 15 seconds, I mean, like that's very, very quickly gone when you're fumbling around a smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this is exactly the Jedi listening moment that I experienced the other day.
I'm so glad you did that, Marcus. That was a great move. Everyone should do that. Yeah. Let John Krause get the videos, let the professional, there's going to be way better videos online than you could ever get. But the magic is to be there. Really well done.
I'm remembering that moment when I was a lot younger in the 90s, sometime in the 90s. My first time in, I think, Death Valley it was. My first time with a friend in Death Valley. We're sitting on top of a mountain. I was in awe of what I was seeing. And I was trying to put that, make a couple of photos. Back then, there were no smartphones. It was a traditional photo camera. And my friend says, stop making photos. It's all up here. Look at this. Stop making photos. You won't need them. And I, for whatever reason, I'm reminding myself of that moment because he was so true. He was absolutely true. And now we're talking about it decades later about it. So thank you for that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So, Loretta, you have too little to do in your life. This is why you're adding a bunch of additional challenges to your life, and that is Yuri's Night, for example. So Yuri's Night has become quite a success globally. How did it originate?
When I first got to NASA in Houston in 1996, it was at the end of the Cold War, and there was a Soviet artifacts coming to the United States for the first time. And they came to Houston, and at that time it was very exotic and new. We didn't know much about the Soviet space era because it was all behind the Iron Curtain when I was growing up in the Cold War. And I was always enamored with it. I was always fascinated by it, and so I was excited. I went to this exhibit, and it said "First in Space," and had a big picture of Yuri Gagarin, and it said April 12th, 1961, and I was like, "What? Are you kidding me?" Because the first shuttle launch was April 12th, 1981, 20 years later to the day. And I was like, this is incredible. And I knew that in 2001, this was in the 90s, so 2001 was still coming up. And 2001 was the coolest space year. It's going to be amazing. So futuristic. And so I knew April 12th, 2001 would be the 40th anniversary and the 20th anniversary. And in this space year, and it felt like this incredible opportunity to celebrate the power of space to bring the world together. Because in the 90s, President Clinton had just said we're going to cooperate with the Russians now that the Soviet Union has collapsed or has just broken up, and we're going to do a space station together with our former rivals. And it just felt like magic. I mean, in those days, anyway, it was a different time, a different relationship with Russia in those days. But we were just starting, and we were there's this belief that we could come together, and I was so excited about that. And like Association of Space Explorers and Apollo Soyuz, like there was all this like maybe space can bring us together. Maybe we can heal this rift. And so I went to the UN. The United Nations had their third ever space conference in 1999. So I went there. That's where I met my husband, George, and some other extraordinary people like Will Marshall and Jesse Cowan. And the UN, we were all youth delegates, and the UN asked us to propose ideas to the UN of things that they should be doing in space. And so we said, you should start this World Space Holiday. And so all the other young youth delegates at the event with us at Space Generation Forum, which is where Space Generation Advisory Council, we launched it there at that conference, founded it. And we also founded Yuri's Night. And so the other people were like, we want to host this celebration in our countries too. And so we're like, okay, great. Why don't we make this open source, distributed around the world, like space party to celebrate this joint anniversary. and the power of space to bring the world together. And so we've been doing it ever since 2001.
Fantastic. Is this like now? It's a global event, right?
Yeah. So it's cool because we like in Japan, April 12th is also a space anniversary of their first rocket launch as well, and it's the day that International Space Service was founded. So there's lots of places around the world where people are doing. In Germany, they have a very strong Yuri's Night presence, and in Mexico, and so it's been great to see this take off. The first year there was parties in 69 different cities around the world, and the 50th anniversary of human spaceflight, there's like 200 parties around the world.
Fantastic.
It's great. And so now we do this at the IAC as well. So usually Yuri's Night is around April 12th because that's the anniversary. And in October, we have the International Astronautical Congress, which is where instead of the parties being around the world, all the people from around the world go to one place for a big space conference. This year, the International Astronautical Congress is in Italy, in Milan. And so all the space people from around the world are all going to Milan. And so we also started, thanks to Yuri's Night Germany and Bremen in 2018, they started this tradition of hosting a Yuri's Night event at IAC. And so that all the space community can celebrate Yuri's Night together, which is really fun too. And then sort of get a feel for what it's like. It's a unique thing, mixing music and space and art, and then be like, oh, this is fun. This is cool to dance to space music, and then take that back to their countries and do it in April.
For everyone amongst our audience who's not familiar with Yuri's Night, what is it in a nutshell? Are there any rituals to it? Can anyone participate? Do you need any skills?
Anyone can participate. You just go to yurisnight.net and click start a party. And if two or more are gathered, it could be a Yuri's Night party. You could do it at your house. You could do it at a local bar. You could do it at a club or a university or wherever you can host people. People have done rocket launches. They've done movie nights. They've done costume parties, trivia. I like dance parties. So we have like dance music. There's a lot of good space dance music. Nicki Minaj, Starships. It's always a good one. You can dance to, and then at IAC and at the Yuri's Night flagship events we host in California and Florida under the retired space shuttles. We usually our recipe is usually a flown astronaut. Talk to like have them share firsthand their experience with the people who are attending. Nice. Costumes, cocktails, and then a DJ dance party. And art and space groups. We have like, nonprofits and space companies like bring hardware or show and tell or things that they can share with people who are coming. Like, have a meteorite you can hold or space glove you could put on or, just different fun things for people to do. I think what people really love about it, I think part of the magic of Yuri's Night is that it's a big party, a big club you can go to, and everybody there is a space person like you. So you sort of feel like you belong, or like you can go up and talk to anyone or be like, oh, that's a cool shirt, Marcus. Like, what? Oh, do you work? Do you work at SpaceX? And like just start a conversation with anyone, geek out on space stuff with anyone.
Fantastic. I'd like to now try to go even in more visionary and philosophical realms where there is more than one answer and maybe no answer at all. I'm just wondering where in history we as humans are in this pocket in time. Are we finally becoming an interplanetary species? Is this the moment that we're witnessing?
Yes, we're definitely at a very important inflection point, a very important turning point for our species. In Hollywood, they always show the time travelers always come back to this time to like fix things, maybe not have us go down the AI path like in the Terminator. like that was a bad idea.
Yeah,
let's not do that. And so,
but we're not listening. We're not listening.
I know.
We're building AI like crazy.
I know. Come on, go watch the Terminator again. Like, what are you doing? How many movies do we have to make that show you this is a bad idea?
Exactly.
I'm not sure why Silicon Valley and Hollywood haven't gotten together on this one, but yeah. So I think this is important. And the other thing that I like to think about or challenge people with is that, there's this natural tendency to think like all of history has led to this moment. Like we are it. We have achieved. But take it down a notch. Now, fast forward 500 years. How are they going to look back on us 500 years from now? I mean, we're going to look really primitive and really, like in the Star Trek, they would say, barbaric.
Provided we're still around.
Yes. Fantastic point, Marcus. Yes. Should we be so lucky as to not annihilated ourselves or brought on our annihilation? Or the AI who are still there will judge us like, God, they were really dumb, weren't they? So just to it's just practical science. Like if you look back 150 years, we didn't understand what radiation was. We didn't understand what bacteria and germs were. Just like
it's
two
just
really fundamental things. Yeah, thank you. 100 years. Fundamental things like basic biology, basic physics that now every grade school kid understands.
Yeah.
And we use both of those, radiation we use for MRIs and we use for, helping with cancer treatments. We use for energy source, for space missions, like radiation. When we once we figured out radiation, we were like, oh, that's game changing. Like that changes the whole game.
Yeah.
Now that we understand about radiation. Well, we didn't understand about it before. And bacteria is the same thing. Like, oh, doctors have to wash their hands before they do surgery. We had no idea. That's and now we don't die. And we made penicillin. So massive, massive game changes by understanding just basic little things about physics and biology. And so now I want us to take on the humility of like, okay, what is the next basic concept in physics and biology that we just haven't discovered yet? We just haven't mastered or don't understand or don't appreciate. That's right there living with us, but just we don't know about. That it's going to just change the game.
Maybe this is happening with AI at the moment, because I could imagine that AI is a magic tool or is becoming a magic tool. Right now, it's a useful tool, but once AGI is around, provided we will ever develop something like this, there's a lot of criticism against it, and some voices for it, but still, maybe this is the magic wand not for the rest of humanity, but maybe as an important stepping stone, like the magic wand, like the one was when electricity was discovered, or when, I don't know, airplanes were invented and whatnot, the internet and whatnot. So maybe artificial intelligence is one of these building blocks to bring us into an essentially new place as humans. Maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that's definitely true. It has a lot of promise. But I think the challenges were not, there's just that great quote that we are, prehistoric, like biology minds with Neanderthalic, systems, governance, and godlike technology.
Yes.
And so like our technology is just doing incredible development, but our souls, our spirits, our beings, our relationships are not improving on that same
curve. We're still cave people, yeah. Mm-hmm.
We're still cave people. And so I'm really hopeful that AI can help us do a better job on ourselves. But it can also, but something that powerful can also be misused. So we need to really work on how do we, upgrade our own firmware, our own software. So we're ready to be responsible stewards of that much.
Maybe, and then we can let AI take its own path. But maybe AI can take care of the chores and everyday things that humans shouldn't do in the first place, because we shouldn't be on this planet to just make money. This is the first fallacy I think we're we're trapped in at the moment, that we think that life is all about making money, but it should be about something else. And this something else should be now our main goal as humans, to find out what it is, why we're here on this planet. Because I think that a very, very tiny fraction of humans really commit their thoughts to answering this question. But this should be the main goal of anyone on this planet, in my opinion. So maybe AI could help us here to get rid of the tedious work, make some money for us, and we are free to roam our minds and the planet to find out about ourselves, why we're here. Maybe.
That's beautiful, Marcus. Yeah, I like to think about Star Trek and like how they have a moneyless society. Yeah. Like, well, I guess it's, like, do the thought experiment. Like, what other model, we don't have to just do things the way we always done them. What else is possible? So yeah, I'm interested in creating the culture of the science fiction future to go along with all of our technology. Because if we have all the tech, but we're still being, jerks, it's not going to be as cool as the science fiction we want it to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Loretta, would you already mentioned you would want to go to space, but does that have limits? Would you go to the moon, to Mars? Would you even go beyond?
My goal is to go to Saturn. I would like to take a retirement cruise around Saturn. So you guys got to figure out the radiation thing for me. Come on, I need an active shielding system. I want to go out to Titan, where there's an atmosphere, and you don't need a pressure suit. Like, how cool is that? And like, hopefully we can have a clear enough day where you could see the rings of Saturn from Titan. That'd be freaking cool.
How long would it take you to get there?
Well, it took Cassini 6 years to get to Saturn.
Okay.
So we're gonna have to improve on that. So come on, we need to. I'm probably, me and my life support system are gonna take a lot more mass than Cassini. So, but technology is always. I got 40 years, so I think there's some amazing things are gonna happen in that time.
Now I'm asking because on this show we keep asking this question to every guest we have in the studio. And the question is, for that long journey, it will get boring at some point. And after the initial excitement has worn off. So my question to you is, what one piece of music would you want to have on your interplanetary space travel playlist? Because we do have that playlist on Spotify. So it's called the Playlist for the Aspiring Space Traveler. And it consists of contributions from all the guests on this show. So now the question to you, what's the one tune you wouldn't want to miss?
Led Zeppelin, Ramble On.
Fantastic. It's not taken yet, so I'll put it online in a second. Fantastic. And another question. So this show is called the Space Cafe Podcast. It's a coffee place, so to say. And now and then you go into coffee places to energize yourself, to have an espresso when you're tired. Now I challenge you to share an espresso for the mind with me. A shot of inspiration you feel like could be meaningful and inspiring for audiences. Now, and you can pick whatever kind of topic you want to pick.
Wow. Gosh. Wisdom on demand.
Yes. Now. And I'm not even paying for it.
I feel like I was just giving some really good advice to someone like recently, and I got to remember what it was. It was really good too. Let's see. Oh, I have a philosopher friend who I just love to talk to. He's just so brilliant. PhilosophyCenter.net. I call him as much as I can. He's just really cool, Phil. And he said, Loretta, the difference between a healthy brain and neurotic, anxious person is that for a healthy brain, 2 + 2 = 4. And I was like, yeah, 2 + 2, 4. Got it. And he's like, and for a neurotic, for an anxious person, for like irritated person, 2 + 2 = 4. And that's a problem.
Fantastic. I like that.
Just let 2 + 2 = 4. Like whatever's happening is what's happening. Yeah. It's just physics. It's okay. Just let it be. There's clouds. The launch is delayed. Okay.
By the way,
clouds and the launch is delayed.
Speaking of clouds, that's already at some point I read a fantastic observation that 2 + 2 = 4. You're right, and 1 and 1 = 2. You're right, but not always. And for example, if you take 2 clouds and put them together, it's still just one cloud.
1 + 1 = 1.
Exactly. So it's the reference we're talking about. So, and I think this is a profoundly interesting observation to make, that there's moments where 1 and 1 does not equal 2. It's always the matter and the reference you're talking about. And so this keeps maybe even the most frustrated or irritated person you were talking about also maybe a little bit sane, because it gives us opportunity for a way out, for an alternative sometimes when we're stuck in something, because the world is so manifold, as we know. And if you're stuck in one problem, look left and right. Maybe you have a solution right next to you. But yeah, this went a little beyond what you were trying to say now with your piece of inspiration, I think.
No worries. Perfect.
All right, Loretta, thank you so much for taking the time. That was truly inspiring. Inspiring because it's something, it's now episode 118. And this is something that no one has ever talked about. That could be concerning, but also for you, it's uplifting, because thank you for letting me into your world, a profoundly new idea that is, after I heard you talk about it, I deem it is profoundly important and necessary. So thank you for sharing that with us on that show.
My pleasure.
And that, my friends, brings us to the end of today's episode of the Space Cafe podcast. You know, talking with Loretta really makes you think. Well, at least it made me think. While we're all caught up in the rush of holiday shopping and hunting for the perfect gifts, and maybe the most valuable thing we can share isn't sitting on any shelf. Here's a thought. Why not gift this very episode to someone who loves asking the big questions just as you do? In a world where we're drowning in stuff but starving for substance, sharing ideas like these, who knows about who we want to be as a spacefaring civilization, how we might do better up there than we sometimes do down here. That's the kind of present that keeps on giving. Whether you're listening to this during your commute or your workout, or just taking a moment to ponder our cosmic future, thank you for being part of this conversation. And hey, if you're enjoying our journey through space and time together, do not forget to leave us a rating or review or two on your favorite podcast platform. It helps other curious minds find their way to these conversations. Until our next cosmic chat, keep looking up, my friends, and thinking deep. This is Marcus, signing off from the Space Cafe podcast. Bye-bye.